Shabbat Shalom. I'm Robert Barr, and this is Harriet Edwards, a past president of Congregation Beth Adam. We're delighted to be sharing this Shabbat with you at ourjewishcommunity.org. We're going to start our service with a reading. 6 days we speak, tonight we listen. 6 days we build, tonight we rest. 6 days we take care of others, tonight we nurture ourselves. 6 days we work to change our world, tonight we are renewed by what is eternal. 6 days we plan for the future. Tonight we are enveloped in the present. 6 days we eat and drink in haste.
Tonight we savor the taste of bread and wine and feel the bond of the world that feeds us. 6 days we teach. Tonight we learn. 6 days we hear the clamor. Tonight we listen for the clarity. 6 days we struggle to expand our influence. Tonight we are dissolved in a greater influence. 6 days we focus our vision on the task at hand. Tonight we look beyond what we can see. May each of us find our Sabbath peace.
So, as I said, I'm Robert Barr, and this is Harriet Edwards, and we're here at ourjewishcommunity.org, here in Congregation Beth Adam, our studio here where we began this initiative many years ago to create a way to connect people around the world to a bold Jewish experience. Something new in our technology is we've moved to a different platform. So if you're having a little bit different experience, if you've joined us before and it looks a little bit different, it should, because we changed it. You also may have a little bit of different experience with the chat function. You may need to log on through your Facebook or make an account through Livestream. If you have any other questions, you can type in a text and ask the question online, and the folks who are running our equipment can look at it and see if they can answer the question for you. Most importantly, this is a chance for us to be together, to share a Judaism that speaks to who we are as 21st century Jews. Jews who recognize that ultimately we are responsible for what happens in the world. We're the ones who are going to make the world a better place or allow it to dissolve into chaos and nastiness. We do that with a sense of responsibility, a sense of respect for the past, and a sense of commitment to the future. We've created here a congregation, we're going to talk about it more, about our liturgy that talks about that in our service. Others may talk about it in the sermons, perhaps in adult education, but we've really woven this into the very fabric of what it means to be a member of this community. And we use technology to knit people together. The technology is the format. It's the bigger megaphone, if you will, a louder microphone. But it really is ultimately about creating community. Now, I know not everybody can watch services at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and some of you will happen upon the service or join us later. You too are part of this community, and you can always participate in the chat by writing me at rabbi@ourjewishcommunity.org. And I think our new platform will allow you to actually add your comments even if you've watched the service later. So I'm delighted you're here. We'll continue our service with our candlelight.
On Shabbat, we light the candles. Candles bring forth light, illuminating the darkness. Candles offer us warmth, providing comfort. Candles awaken us as we reach for possibilities. As we light these candles, let us use their light to stretch beyond ourselves, touching others, bettering our world.
Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch ha'or ba'Shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. And as I said before, sitting to my left is Harriet Edwards. Harriet has been involved in Congregation Beth Adam for over 30 years. We were just talking about this, and I asked her to join us for several reasons. They'll become sort of probably more obvious as we go along our service. But Harriet has been involved in probably almost every aspect, I'm guessing, of the congregation.
Yes. Definitely.
After 30 years, that's a lot of time. Serving on the board, serving as a past president, instrumental in helping us to develop our liturgy, involved with the social aspects of the community as well. So I'm delighted you're here. Thanks for sharing, taking your time out of your Shabbat evening. I don't know if you're coming. We have bricks and mortar services tonight. You could be at 2 services in one night, perhaps.
Or perhaps not.
Or perhaps not. I do get that too. So what I want to know, and I think it's important because I think a lot of folks who join Beth Adam or our JewishCommunity.org know it as a sort of a new experience. We started streaming our high holidays 8 years ago, and these Shabbat services are newer or younger. And for a lot of folks, they don't realize that we have this long history of close to over 30 years. So how did you find Beth Adam? Remind me of that too. I don't remember, and your Jewish involvement.
Well, I grew up as a Reformed Jew in California. I then later married a rabbinical student and was here in Cincinnati while he went through rabbinical school. And so I belonged to the temples where he was rabbi. As I was growing up and getting older, and I was young then, I really began questioning the things that I was saying, what I was seeing in the liturgy. And it was so antithetical to my belief, and I felt it was also very sexist. So when I was remarried, my husband and I joined a congregation, and at that time there was a new prayer book, and I think it was Gates of Prayer and Gates of Repentance.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I'd been used to kind of not paying attention to the services, so I could kind of make the time pass. But that year they were new words, and I was an English teacher, and so words meant a lot to me. And I looked at this service, and I looked at the language, and I thought, I just can't do this again. In the meantime, I had some friends who were members of Beth Adam, and I said to my husband, let's just check out this congregation. And we checked it out and very quickly decided it was for us.
So you came here through the liturgy or because of the liturgy.
Yes.
And we should talk about that because there was a team of people who wrote 20 years together.
Yes.
Probably more, yeah. We wrote.
Yeah,
and
it's been almost 30 years we've written together.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I know a lot of times when I go out speaking, you've done this too on your travels. You've spoken about Beth Adam. People wonder how did the service become the service it is, and who wrote it. Sometimes as the rabbi, people say, "Oh, you must have written to me the whole thing yourself," and I have to dissuade them of that. But you were really involved. I actually remember the first time you led the group. Don't you remember that?
Yeah, I sure
we
do.
We did the Shabbat, and you lit candles, and you brought in challah, and you brought in bread, or wine, and you had us each write about it. And out of that became a group of people who were committed to writing. What were your memories of that, your experiences of that?
When I joined the committee, that I had just joined the congregation, and I joined the Ritual Life Cycle Committee, and basically they were doing something, resources for people after somebody
Death and dying, yes. Actually,
dying,
that's still on our JewishCommunity.org if you want to see that. It's
resources
a little bit
and reflections.
Resource and reflection. It's a bit old. It's a little bit dated in the sense that, and it was specific. There were some things that were specific to Cincinnati, but it really gives a lot of information about dealing with death and dying and what needs to be done. I forgot we had published that.
Right.
Lily was the chair at that point. Yep.
And then I came to a couple of meetings and realized that really what they were doing was kind of piecemealing things together that had already been written. And then Lily left town, and I volunteered to take over the committee. And I thought, I also at the time I was teaching creative writing at the University of Cincinnati, and I thought, I think we can do something ourselves. And so I had this idea, if I brought in challah and candles and wine, and just asked whoever wanted to come to that meeting to just write about what they were looking at. And they were good prompts, and the wine helped a lot. So out of that, we were able to pull together actually a first home Shabbat service.
Right, very first one.
And I remember my husband writing something about looking at the challah, and he wrote something about as the fingers of the challah intertwine.
Right.
And we still use that, and I still look at that and think, my husband wrote that.
Right.
But from that really tiny little beginning, there were a number of people who were very interested in really creating and writing. And we started meeting, and we met week after week after week,
years,
year after year after year. And each year we kind of dealt with one project.
Right.
And we've now covered the waterfront.
Right, we've done a lot.
In
We've
terms of
redone more than one
liturgy, and
Saturday.
reviewed some things.
And I think that's important too, because I think our liturgy, as we introduce our JewishCommunity.org and talk about it, we talk about that we're a modern and contemporary congregation with certain values, and the liturgy is a place where those values became really important, because we have this mantra here that we say frequently. I reference it in the holidays, that we mean what we say and we say what we mean. Because in other liturgy, people say, well, I don't really believe those words, or I reinterpret those words, or those words are poetry, or those are our ancestors' words. But we said, well, what about us? Why can't we speak what's in our minds and what's in our hearts? And we really began to work through that with certain principles in mind. It wasn't haphazard. We had some values. One of the values was we recognized the word God was a complex word.
Right.
That for some folks, it was a word that represented what they believed. For some people, it was what they didn't believe. Some people, in fact, when you ask people to stop using the word but define what they believed about the nature of the universe, frequently those who used the term and those who didn't use the term had a very similar agreement. They didn't believe in an interventionist deity.
Right. And it's interesting. Over the years, we really looked at a lot of words, and because our feeling was, as we as a committee were getting older, we were more interested in being more spiritual. And how do you do that without using some of the sort of techie words or standard words?
Right. Well, we did that. We wanted to write words that were enduring. So we tried to sort of be careful with language. We also had a principle that we didn't define ourselves but what we are not.
Right.
So the word not didn't appear, or no, or a negative didn't appear. We moved away from gender-specific language early on, or even heterosexual language. There's a statement about people joining together 2 by 2. We were very conscious. That was probably 15 years ago, when other people hadn't even really begun to address liturgically issues around same-gender relationships. We were dealing with that. So we explored that. We tried to lay in what other words that were interesting, maybe old religious words, could be used again in a fresher kind of way.
Right.
So we sat around, and I think what was joyful and what was really exciting about it was also as a sense of really was a group of people that, even though we can recognize a phrase that Charlie wrote or you wrote or something David wrote, there was a sense that there was an integrated whole, and over time we found a singular voice of the institution, of the community.
And the interesting thing to me is that as we created this, and it was really something that came out of a group process. I didn't have this idea of this is how we're going to do it. It lived through us. That each person really brought in their own creation, and nobody took it over and redid it. So even though, and it just sort of worked, that all of these pieces that are written are from different people, and they have their sensibilities, their rhythms, but it fit together. And I think that's part of the strength of our community, is that we have very different kinds of people here with different ideas and different backgrounds and different rhythms, and yet they can work together lovingly. And with energy.
Right, with energy. And everyone left their egos at the door, too. That was the hard part.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because sometimes somebody writes and you go, I'm not sure that
Right.
works like you think it does. Or we'd read it out loud and people would say, the rhythm of those words. And people are really pretty sensitive to each other, both willing to hear each other, change a little bit, modify, sort of create that unified whole. And what was interesting, the services did work. I mean, they became organic, they grew. So for those of you who've joined us for Shabbat, we read different Shabbat services at our Jewish community every Friday. If you joined us for the high holidays, that entire liturgy was written by this group of people. If you've purchased perhaps or seen our Passover Seder, the Haggadah was written by that group, and we've been fortunate we have a member of the congregation who owns a design firm who's really invested a lot of energy, because we also recognize it's not just the words, but it's how it feels, feels and how he experiences. So that went through
And
a whole...
how it looks.
Right, how it looks.
How it feels in your hand.
Right, yeah, we had a lot. I remember we had a paper taste touching evening where we brought different papers in and textures in, and we looked at different fonts. And I think it was what was as exciting was, how do we take ideas like this and really create a religious experience and move it beyond the mundane and make it more meaningful? Because what we created touches us on Friday nights, high holidays, Passover, but it's woven into our memorials, funerals. We wrote a baby naming service, which was a blast. We had a lot of fun. Some of the people on the team had like grandchildren were being born or children were being born, and people just brought different feelings as well as different experiences. Some people having experienced infertility, so that got woven into it, and a sort of different levels of experience made it all together. So it's been a great experience. So if you continue to explore, if you go to ourjewishcommunity.org, you can see some of the other liturgical works that we've done over the years. And there's another reason I asked Harriet here tonight as well, was Harriet was instrumental in inviting Steen Metz. I mentioned that last week online, that Steen Metz is a Holocaust survivor. He was 8 years old when he was taken to Theresienstadt, a Danish Jew. And next week, if you go to Cincinnati OJC, if you go to the Cincinnati OJC tab on ourjewishcommunity.org, and you click on that, it will take you to that special page, and there'll be it'll say Steen Metz. You can click on that, and it'll take you to a whole page. An interview with Steen and his presentation to our community. It'll take you to some blogs. Harriet wrote one of them, and some blogs written by some of our high school students about a survivor. How did you meet Steen? Can you talk about it real quickly?
Yes, I met, and actually that's part of my blog, but I met him through his wife, Eileen. I am in a writing group in Sanibel, Florida, and she was part of the group, and I met Steen through her and learned that he had written a book about it was about his life, but also part of it, of course, was his time in Theresienstadt. And that was like 6 years ago, and it wasn't until about 4 years ago that Steen began speaking out, and he talks about that in the interview. He just realized that, first of all, there's a lot of people that are Holocaust deniers, even professors. He's from Chicago. There's one Northwestern.
Right.
There are others in the world. There are many people who are losing touch. I mean, because so many survivors are no longer with us.
Right.
That the real person is getting lost. And he became really compulsive about telling this story, and he's traveled around. I heard him in Sanibel the first time, and then we've stayed in contact. And I said, "How about coming to Cincinnati?" And he spoke here on Sunday, and on Monday he spoke at Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy to the high school students. There were over 450 students, and the faculty, it was about 500 people. They welcomed him so graciously. They gave him a 5-minute standing ovation, which actually brought him to tears.
Oh, really? That's very sweet.
And it's just been such an exciting adventure seeing him become what he refers to as an upstander, someone who is out there ready to speak up, to take steps, to teach, and to make people understand that they need to be moral and speak out for that.
Right. Yeah, it was very profound, I have to say. It was really moving. And what was interesting and particularly important to me was talking to our students afterwards, the Barr and Bat Mitzvah kids and our teens, who really appreciated both what he was sharing with them and then their responsibility. That they began to see themselves as incredibly important links, because it's true. I mean, Steen is relatively young still. I mean,
just turned 80.
Just turned 80, and that's young for a survivor.
Yes.
In Cincinnati, we have, I believe, Sarah Weiss, who was joining me a couple of weeks ago, said there's about 100-ish, a little maybe a bit more survivors in Cincinnati. Only 10 are speaking. And so to hear a survivor becomes very important. And two, to be a young person, a 12, 13-year-old, to hear a survivor and know that when you're 30 or 40, there will be no more survivors speaking out, and that you'll be that link. And I think the kids really appreciated that, what he shared with them. I think, too, because he was himself young. He was 8 years old.
Exactly.
when he was taken to Theresienstadt, where he and his mother survived. His father died. I think the kids saw a different kind of connection, perhaps, than they would have if they had seen somebody who was telling a different kind of story.
Right. Who seemed to them very old at the beginning.
At the beginning, exactly,
Right.
and he certainly was young with the beginning. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all the work you've done. I hope those of you who are joining us online tonight and watching this in archives come to sort of begin to see the depth of and expanse of the congregation of Beth Adam. You don't oftentimes get a chance to do that. A couple of weeks ago, or at the beginning of the summer, Sam Cooper, who's our current president, was on, and Sam represents third generation Beth Adam.
And Sam's father, David, has been one of the beginning members with me of the Ritual Life Cycle.
That's right. He wrote a lot. So, this is it. I mean, one of the things that's really, it's having community is both being connected, intimately close proximity, but also through online. And what I'm hoping is by having different members over the course of the year share with you their experiences, their involvement, that we knit together our community even stronger. And you get to see the depth of who we are and the memories that we have and the traditions that we've built and the work that we've done together. So, Harriet, I'm glad you're here. Don't go away. We're going to continue reading our service. And we're going to change for a moment from this conversation to a more contemplative piece, to our memorial, because once a month at ourjewishcommunity.org we read the names of those loved ones and who have died, who are connected to us through this wide community. So if you'll read this first paragraph up here, that'd be.
The cycle of life unfolds. Just as we rejoice in new life, we mourn its final ending, the inevitable death of those whose lives have touched ours. Today we join voices with others as we say aloud the words which help us to recall those we have lost. We remember the moments we have shared, the laughter and the tears, the beauty and the pain. Inevitably, as our lives intertwined, as we have touched one another, we have been influenced, changed, and enriched by their presence. And so, as we mourn their loss, we celebrate their life. Thus, the cycle continues, their lives forever marking the continued unfolding of our own.
So at this time, we pause to reflect upon those who are no longer among us. This moments of remembrance links life to life and generation to generation. So I'm going to read names that were sent to us, but if you have other names that you hold in your hearts, feel free to type them in at this time. Share them with the rest of the community. So remember Paul Brenner, Catherine Leicht, Henrietta Mann, Virginia Tweedy, Howard Strawman, Arnold Tweedy, Charles Tweedy, Ray Sheffield, Faye Goldstein, Morris Goldstein, Norman Drelach, Tilly Drelach, Ruben Drelach, Betsy Drelach, Linda Forster, Jack Rosen. We also think this night of those who have died as a result of violence that mars our nation and mars our planet. We think, too, of those who died defending the principles of justice, peace, freedom, and democracy throughout the world. We think of those who've died as a result of natural disasters, those who've died through intolerance, genocide, war. And we pause and we think, too, of those who have no one to remember this night. We remember all of our loved ones who death has taken from us. Ein b'dei ha'mavet ha'koach, la'akol ramah shetabun b'lev. Death cannot take that which is locked in our hearts. With our tears and our sorrow we remember. With our courage and our strength we do not forget. Acts of kindness, deeds of courage will remain. Beauty created, wisdom shared is not lost. With our tears and our sorrow we remember. Zeker Tzadik Livracha, may the memory of good people bless our days.
Let the Sabbath be a time for believing in what could be and seeing with new eyes. In this serious world, let us take ourselves less seriously. In these harsh times, let us listen for a soothing word. While the world around us unfolds in an instant, let us judge each other a little more slowly. Let the Sabbath shine a light into a corner of ourselves where hope is renewed, Let us remember a reason to be joyful, a way to be gentle. Let the Sabbath be a time for opening up. Let us find strength in our dreams and trust in our strength.
And then we'll continue with our challah reading. If you want to do that, because I'll do the wine later. Because I'm going to do wine twice tonight, so I'll just drink out the same glass.
Okay.
Saves me washing a glass.
Then I don't get wine?
No, you can get some
juice
after.
Oh, okay.
Tonight's juice too.
Okay. In Jewish tradition, we shared the challah as we celebrate the Shabbat. We are reminded that challah, a twisted loaf of bread, sustains and nurtures the life of our bodies. May the sharing of this challah sustain and nurture our hunger for knowledge and understanding of the world around us. May the sharing of this challah sustain and nurture our connection to those close by and those separated by distance and by time. May the sharing of this challah encourage us to reach out to those across our rooms, across the hallways, to those across our desks, and across the miles. May the sharing of this challah strengthen and enrich our coming week.
Baruch Amal Kapeinu.
Blessed is the work of our hands.
Baruch Hazon Ha'adam.
Blessed is the vision of our minds.
Baruch Lechem Ha'aretz.
Blessed is the bread of the earth.
So if you want to take some challah, it's fresh. It's
Sure.
sliced, which means we have
Absolutely.
bricks and mortar services here. So if you're in the
Yeah.
greater Cincinnati area, come join us. And if you have some wine or some juice, join me. On Shabbat, it's custom to share wine or juice with family, friends, and community. It reminds us that it's not enough for us to quench our physical thirst. We must nourish our spirit as well. As we celebrate Shabbat, may this wine or juice remind us to live our lives to the fullest and to embrace the joys and pleasures that life offers. Bruchim ha'chayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Bruchim ha'chayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within each person. So we say, l'chaim, to life.
Okay.
So before our service ends, we have a couple announcements. We will have Shabbat services next week on the 16th. Please join me. I'll probably be by myself, but maybe I can convince Aya, our rabbinic intern, who many of you know, see if we can squeeze her in next week for a service. As I said, go to ourjewishme.org. Click on the tab that says Cincinnati or OJC in Cincinnati. The Steenmetz interview will be there, along with his full presentation. There's a lot of material that you can explore, which would be great. Do that. Always go to our Facebook page, and there you can find upcoming events. So go to facebook.com/ourjewishcommunity, or go to ourjewishcommunity.org and just follow us there. There's a lot happening, a lot of different materials. We're delighted you're part of the community. If you're watching this after the Friday night, feel free always to write me at rabbi@ourjewishcommunity.org. And if you have any comments about the new format, please write me at ourjewishcommunity.org. We're always trying to make this a better experience. I know now you can get on our mobiles. It's going to be much easier to use mobile devices or iPads and things like that and watch this service. Delighted you're here. Harriet, I was thrilled you joined us.
Thank
So
you.
much
Thank
fun.
you.
And we end with our closing words. May we know blessings those who are near, and may we know blessings those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.